welcome back for another set of news from Tricoria. This is a summary of the Game of Shadows turn for the first quarter of year 10. 10 years after the inauguration of the Chronolob. Let us go over the news from across the realm. In Koryulme, the Animist Inquisition is mobilizing the fishermen from level 3 to level 4. This happens by boats beginning to round up as Baruch cracks the whip and the fishermen fear dealing with the Animist. The fishermen are now level 4, having received some discipline from the Animist Inquisition. Nothing else really transpires on the island of Safina during this quarter, as the other resources are have completed their work. Moving on to Trinsmira. In Milaki, the courtiers are raising influence to level 1, betting 5 fate dice. Apparently, being rude and keeping secrets meant that the Empress couldn't deal with her right now, which in turn meant temporary exile from the entire goddamn continent, that is Palamux, the island of Palamux. Whatever, it's not like Lady Brittany actually wanted to be there for the birth of the baby prince or princess. The kid was probably going to be hideous. No, chatting up the old Milaki nobility was clearly a much better use of her time. 5 dice rolled, a 4, a 6, a 4, and 2 twos is quite enough to succeed, and so Empress Georgina receives influence level 1 on in Milaki. The Milaki nobles are mobilizing to level 5 under Lemur Speda's leadership. The nobles return home after their journeys with news of victories hard won over the Empire. Enthused, the nobility opens its pocketbooks and war chests, bringing in exotic raw materials imported from Palamux and scholars from Issachar. There is a new project afoot, and rumors has it Lemur Speda will soon reveal full-scale production of something. And so the Milaki nobles have leveled up to level 5. Moving on to Himbergond. Here we have the Transmiran Republican Army. It is mobilizing to level 4 for this cold winter season. Larmans and the TRA train in the mountains of Himmergond, perhaps preparing for future conflict, or merely to keep the sanctified remains of the burned child near to Nashtar's bosom. In this coldest of times, pilgrims journey increasingly to pay their respects to the burned child, and some remain to swell the TRA's ranks, forswearing the lives they led before and committing themselves to Inashtar's war. TRA is now a level 4. Moving on to Kark. Goskana's alchemists track down Lemur's privateers. They make sure to enter the kitchens wherever the sailors want a good drink and spike their pints with something extra, attacking the privateers. The trade ship captains help the alchemists. And they make sure that the drinks keep flowing. With the change in seasons comes a calm in the waters and time for celebrations of a prosperous year. A true sailor's first loyalty is to the sea, and we should celebrate its bounty. Fundibera's inconspicuous witches try to alert the privateers and confuddle the alchemists and trade ship captains with spells, and the privateers defend themselves with as best as they can, being on guard for any nefarious deeds. The attackers roll 10d6. It's a 2, 3, 3, 6, 2, 6, 6, 5, 1, 3 versus the defenders 10d6 on 1, 6, 1, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, which means that the attackers win. They have considerably more successes, and since they have 3 sixes, they do 4 points of damage to the privateers. The privateers are thus destroyed in this plot and find themselves probably completely addicted to whatever potions, also poisoned to whatever substances the alchemists have put into their drinks. We move on to Mixa. Here the full moon fleet mobilizes from 1 to 2. The shipyards built yet another vessel for Fundibera's fleet. The crew has already been selected. There's a waiting list to join. Rum, sodomy, and the lash can actually be a selling point in certain circles, apparently. We move on to Palamux. In Nastrol, the knights are mobilizing. They tour the monasteries, adding suitably ancient traditional techniques to their arsenal against the day when the Empress calls upon them to fight in her name, which must surely be soon. Maybe a nice little border skirmish. Anything really? And thus the knights are now level 3. Gerion's loyalists also mobilize. They show their undying commitment to their new Clavikian empire. All hail the Empress, and gain in fervor and conviction. We move on to Fontrasilor. The Fundiberan priests, they raise influence to level 1. They want to do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. A grand holy orgy draws in high-ranking merchants and petite bourgeoisie, all willing to share secrets in the afterglow. 5d6 are rolled, and it is in fact 3 successes, so this works wonderfully for Fundibera, who now has level 1 influence in Fontrasilor. No one opposed and no one helped. The laborers in Fontrasilor are raising the influence to level 2. Celebrations abound regarding the birth of Princess Keziah. The Empress is helping here with 5 more dice. Her scholars support the laborers with timely research into appropriate traditions surrounding the birth of an heir to the imperial throne. 10d6 rolled with 1, 2, 3, 4 successes, which is quite more than was needed. And so Gerion's influence goes up to level 2. To Moscoria next. The knights are mobilizing from level 2 to level 3. Having caught wind of the change at the Kishat, the Baru suspects the worst and requests more aid to be brought to help their struggles. And so they do. So the Knights of the Inquisition level up to level 3. No, the Gerion's illusionists attack the foresters. They want to drive the invaders back to the sea for Empress Georgiana and for the little Princess Keziah. They will do so using all sorts of illusions that will lead the foresters astray, perhaps even to, drown in the actual sea with powerful spells. The foresters will use their orienteering skills to lead any that attempt to hunt them down on a chase. And Empresses Georgiana's vintners know these lands better than any foreign foresters. After all, they just finished assisting the Empress's irrigation project, and they tried to help the illusionists to track their quarry down. Gerion rolls 10d6 and gets 1, 2, 3, 4 successes, whereas Lady Clenora Despinalunga, the Duchess, rolls 9d6 and gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 successes. And thus the foresters defend themselves successfully. No change for the foresters' position, and Clenora Despinalunga gains all the fate dice that Gerion and the Empress invested in this venture. We move on to Lasimos. And here, Gerion Grotesque's spies mobilized. Left unchecked, the spies snoop around, peeking through all the doors that others would prefer to remain closed. They thus are now at level 2. And we move on to Zidisbar. Clenora's intrusion will be tolerated no longer. First, they crashed my wedding, and now they invade following my daughter's birth. Make them suffer. And so, Gerion's mentalists attack the merchants with mind-altering spells. Goscana dos Gugres agents will support Clenora's merchants, gathering what intelligence they can and channeling it to the merchants so they can avoid unpleasant situations with 5 dice in support. The merchants themselves are also defending themselves using... They're question this narrative of invasion. They're bringing goods and trade to people who need them, aiding the economy in these times, especially when the demand for luxuries to celebrate special events. These Palamoxi are rather strange people wanting to make do with less than they could have through mutual exchange to have more of the things they lack. However, the Mummers, the wild cycle, they know how to stir a crowd. A writer, street magician, picked up in Losimos, has created a new performance piece criticizing the merchant's presence as simply the next attempt at occupation by a foreign empire. Occupation and perhaps assassination of the infant princess. Some of the nuance may have been lost, but the mob was angry enough to storm the merchant stalls, and thus they help Gerion. And finally, the partisans in Empress Georgiana's employ also help Gerion. The partisans are easily influenced by the mentalists, since after all, was this not what they signed up for? They declaim against the Tracorian oppressors in the marketplace, harassing anyone who buys the Duchess Clenora's from the Duchess's merchants. The attackers roll 13 dice and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 successes. And the merchants roll 11 to defend and have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes. So the attackers win, and they do 3 points of damage. And that is exactly what the merchants had in strength. So they are, in fact, destroyed by this concerted effort from all these different parties. We move on to Paratorna. In Illiboria, the defaults mercenaries practice, led by their new drill captain, developing their fighting prowess. This is a mobilization, and the mercenaries thus go from level 2 to level 3. The bookies in Illiboria also mobilize, signing up as many of the addicted locals as possible to hopeless bets and enriching themselves in the process. We move to Rule, which is also a bit of a hornet's nest this turn. All the various factions here. Arriving in Rule to finalize a deal over the Mogger's warehouse, Ingolma the Godmother comes herself to oversee the establishment of her lenders. There is no subtlety in this takeover. The Wigmakers Guild will welcome Moggers by mutually beneficial contract or will begin a hostile takeover. It seems something has raised Ingolma's hackles. A rumor circulate she seems almost eager for violence. The bankers themselves set up shop as they normally would, business as usual, cutting deals with desperate businesses and threatening others for protection money. One thing is certain, the Godmother wants those warehouses, and she's willing to kill whomever it takes to get them. Her bankers aim to raise influence to level 5. She has 1 influence already, plus 1 from Peraltro. That gives her 2, plus 5 for the bankers, gives her 7. And another 1 for herself, so she starts with 8 dice. Empress Georgiana's merchants are going to help her with 3 more dice. They'd heard of the Moggers, of course, most often these days from Baudeville Scoffer, who described them as piss-drinking, flap-tipped toad spleens. The Palamoxi merchants had decided among themselves that this was some manner of Paratonian courtship ritual. They had therefore come prepared with some good Safina beer with which to pour out the Kirim. Ingolma's presence was a surprise, but then again, had she not also come to the Empress's wedding? In the end, the baffled merchants decided to do what they did best, make deals, ease transaction costs, and toast to new business arrangements. They roll 10 dice and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 successes. Yep, 8 successes. And thus, Ingolma now has level 3 influence. And that also means that Groskana Daskugre loses his 3 influence and Linvina Gombina lose her influence. She will use this opportunity to buy some smugglers in the area here. Smugglers, level 1. And that will be the result. The Fire Mountain Crones will also raise their influence to level 1 using 5 dice. The Crones have left their mountain and begun to survey the survey of rule. They map ley lines, search for mountains with fire left in their bellies, and begin to spy on troops and nobles alike. Who doesn't love to sit in front of a fire and chat, after all? 5d6, 3 successes, more than needed to get level 1 influence for Lemur Spad in rule. We move to Peraltro. Here, the guards mobilize from 3 to level 4. Join now, young bloods. We have matching armor, a strict do-ask, do-tell policy, and pay good enough to buy a high-maintenance cat. And so these guards go from level 3 to level 4. The organizers in Peraltro are also mobilizing to level 5, learning lessons from the chaos around here. They venture out into the communities to make sure that some kind of order is maintained, even in the tumult, and gain many new insights into their craft. The Trinsmiran Highlanders, level 5, raise influence to level 2 and bet 5 dice. The Highlanders continue to engage with the populace of Peraltro, teaching these Flatlanders how to drink properly and sing songs of praise to Inashtar while recounting atrocities committed against their people, all of which leads the common folk to wonder, why is the Empire expending such manpower and tax revenue to oppress people who just want to live their own lives? If they burn Transmiran children, what could the Empire do even closer to home? Unfortunately, Lemur only gets the 1 success, and so no influence achieved. We move to Hiltra. Here, we have the foot soldiers who practice their drills and formation under the guidance of the, if nothing else, efficiently ordered Gomba tutelage, and so they mobilize. And it appears that they're actually practicing together with the Gombina guards, who are also mobilizing. We move on to Tresilva. The enforcers in Tresilva are mobilizing to level 5. They have had a lot of experience lately with enforcing the law and making sure that nobody steps out of line of the Godmother's wishes, and have drawn conclusions from this. Meanwhile, Rovendo Alicella raises influence from level to level 2. Sometimes, even in the most delicate of matters, boldness is the best approach. Alicella's agents spend a season haunting Dukella's establishments, casing storefronts and henchmen for intelligence, locating the places where the goods, whatever they may be, reside. Then, uncharacteristically, they make an offer. Openly, calm, unafraid, in the back alley, gambling dens and brothel parlors, in letters directly handed to Dukella's most direct subordinates. The offer is simple. Allow the Duke to come and go as he pleases, conducting business and pleasure without interference, and he will afford her the same courtesy within the bounds of Newmark, or don't. The choice is Dukella's. Accept a treaty, perhaps an ally down the road, at the cost of a little reputation, or expend resources preventing Alicella from expanding his foothold. Resources, the letters pointedly remind, that might be better served rebuilding power elsewhere. Shame about Funkfelvi. A terrible tragedy. One must always protect their home. He rolls 6 dice for this and succeeds in getting 4 successes, and so Rovendo now has influence level 2 in Tresilva. As such, we move on to Newmark, where Rovendo himself is. Here he is also Raising influence from level 2 to level 3. Alicella's contacts, especially in the presence of the Emperor himself, keep the wine flowing and the musicians exhausted. The party must go on. The celebration of the Emperor's presence, thick with flattery and praise, serves as both distraction and guard. To attack the Emperor, and by extension his family, at such an auspicious party, why? Who could dare to be so gauche? Who would spit in the very face of Alicella's famous hospitality? Drink to the Emperor, sing his praises. The eyes of a nation are waiting, and 100 sharp tongues await those who cannot swallow their own pride during a festival. He rolls 9 dice and has 8 successes, and thus he succeeds without any doubt at all, gaining influence level 3 in his home province. This also means that Ingolma loses her influence there. He will use this to buy himself some wind mages, level 1. We move on to Malusa. The assassins of Ingolma Dokela in Malusa, they are mobilizing by using the winter to practice their art. They are neophytes at this after all, and have a lot of work to do, doing parkour between the buildings and learning how to use their knives more effectively. And thus, the assassins level up from level 1 to level 2. Meanwhile, Clenorda Spinalunga and her ladies-in-waiting have been hard at work to set the accounts and estates in Malusa back in order. A new year brings new beginnings, and with it, a new ducal ruler. Now is the time for unity to ensure a strong empire. She's raising influence to level 3, all in one go. She has 4 dice for her ladies-in-waiting. She is herself there, that gives her another die, and she has a bonus from neighboring areas. So she has 6 dice in total, and she rolls 3 successes, which is just what she needed to gain her influence here. So she now has influence level 3 in Malusa as well. Clenora has now secured pretty much all of southern Paratorna under her sway, and she will use this fortune to get herself a smuggler's level 1 resource. In Bralorg, nothing will happen. There are no resources there. In Britalva, also nothing will happen. There is no resources there. And Karamak is the same thing. And that brings to a close this winter turn of year 10. And thank you very much for following the events in the Game of Shadows, and we will see how that spills over to the roleplay sessions.